Good morning, and welcome to the next edition of The Science of Getting Rich. It is part 2, attracting abundance in your life using your creative power. Now, this book was written 100 years ago. So the writing is in an old style, and it's a little dry. So that's why I'm trying to take the book, break it down, bring out the points that are important, and the knowledge is what matters. This book is a classic. It's been the basis for so many self-help books and courses, from The Magic of Believing to The Secret. The knowledge inside this book, it's just pure gold. So what I'm doing, I'll read some of the book. And again, as I'm reading, I'll try to maneuver the language a little bit. So bear with me. It talks about railways and steamships. One thing, when he talks about the future, he's pretty damn spot on. So it's actually, it was written more than 100 years ago, 1910. So, think about what was going on in 1910. I'm obviously go do some research. But anything he talks about the future, he gets pretty good. So it gets pretty close. So anyway, we're going to jump right into it. We stopped yesterday when we started talking about the idea or the question, is opportunity monopolized? So again, I'm going to read and we'll go through it. All right. No man is kept poor because opportunity has been taken away from him, because other people have monopolized the wealth. They've put a fence around it. You may be shut off from engaging in certain business in certain areas, but there are so many other channels open to you. For instance, it would probably be hard to get in control of any of the great railroad systems. Again, remember when it was written. That field is pretty well monopolized. But the electric railway business is still in its infancy and offers plenty of scope for enterprise. It will be just a very few years until traffic and transportation through the air will become a great industry, and in all its branches will give employment to hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of people. Why not turn your attention to the development of aerial transportation instead of competing with others in the steam railway world? So again, you get the idea. It's, again, written so long ago, but if you're not going to be able to take over some giant industry that's already monopolized, it's looking for different areas to go into. It talks about, this next line talks about, if you're a worker in a steel plant, there's very little chance that you're going to become owner of that same plant. Then it talks about, but if you will learn to do things in a certain way, which again is his big thing, we'll get to, it unfolds as we go, but he says this a lot. You can soon leave the job behind, become wealthy. Okay. At different periods, the tide of opportunity moves in different directions according to the needs of the whole. All right. So the collective and the particular stage of social evolution which has been reached. I want to read that again and listen to this carefully. At different periods, the tide of opportunity moves in different directions according to the needs of the whole and the particular stage of social evolution which has been reached. At present in America, it is setting towards agriculture and the allied industries and professions. And today, obviously, it's tech. So let's see. There is abundance of opportunity for the man who will go with the tide instead of trying to swim against it. So the factory workers, either as individuals or as a class, are not deprived of opportunity. The workers are not being kept down by their masters. They're not being ground down by the trusts and the combinations of capital. As a class, They are where they are because they do things in a certain way. If the workers of America choose to do so, they could follow the example of their brothers in Belgium and other countries and establish great cooperative industries. They could elect men of their own class to office and pass laws favoring the development of such cooperative industries. Again, let's go through some of this. The working class may become the master class whenever they begin to do things in a certain way. The law of wealth is the same for them as it is for all others. This they must learn, and they will remain where they are as long as they continue to do as they do. The individual worker, however, is not held down by the ignorance or the mental slothfulness of his class. He can follow the tide of opportunity to riches, and this book will tell him how. No one is kept in poverty by a shortness in the supply of riches. There is more than enough for all. And again, so true. We have this us versus them mentality. I have to get mine. And in order for me to get mine, you can't have yours. Or if you have it, I can't have it. There's only so much to go around. The pie can only be cut in so many ways. That's all BS. That's all a man-made creation to keep us down. A palace as large as the Capitol in Washington could be built for every family on earth from the building material in the United States alone. And under intensive cultivation, this country would produce wool, cotton, linen, and silk enough to clothe each person in the world. Finer than Solomon was arrayed in all his glory, together with food enough to feed them all luxuriously. The visible supply is practically inexhaustible, and the invisible supply really is inexhaustible. Everything you see on earth is made from one original substance, out of which all things proceed. New forms are constantly being made, the older ones dissolving. But everything is created by one thing. There's no limit to the supply of formless stuff, original substance. The universe is made out of it. But it wasn't all used in making the universe. It wasn't all used up. The spaces in and between the forms of the visible universe are permeated and filled with this original substance, with this formless stuff, with the raw material of all things. 10,000 times as much has been made, might still be made. And even then, we should not have exhausted the supply of universal raw material. No man, therefore, is poor because nature is poor or because there's not enough to go around. Nature is an inexhaustible storehouse of riches. The supply will never run out. Original substance is alive. It's alive with creative energy, and it's constantly producing more and more forms. With the supply of building material exhausted, more will be produced. When the soil is exhausted, so that food and materials for clothing will no longer grow upon it, it will be renewed, or more soil will be made. When all the gold and silver has been dug from the earth, if man is still in such a stage of social development that he needs gold and silver, more will be produced from the formless. The formless stuff responds to the need of man. It will not let him be without any good thing. This is true of man collectively. The race as a whole is always abundantly wealthy. And if individuals are poor, it's because they don't follow the certain way of doing things, which makes the individual man rich. The formless stuff is intelligent. It is stuff which thinks. It's alive and always impelled towards more life. It's the nature and inherent impulse of life to seek to live more. It is the nature of intelligence to enlarge itself, and of consciousness to seek to extend its boundaries and find fuller expression. The universe of forms has been made by formless living substance, throwing itself into form in order to express itself more fully. The universe is a great living presence, always moving inherently towards more life and fuller functioning. Nature is formed for the advancement of life. Its impelling motive is the increase of life. For this cause, everything which can possibly minister to life is bountifully provided. There can be no lack. You're not kept poor by the supply of riches. In fact, I will demonstrate this a little farther down as we get, this is him, as we move through. Even the resources of the formless supply are at the command of the man or woman who will act and think in a certain way. So now we've done the setup. We're getting into the first principle. I'm going to do that today. So that's going to be here in this video. The first principle in the science of getting rich. Again, you have to have an open mind for this, but everything in our life is mindset. I talked about this yesterday. I was in China doing a world cruise for Crystal Cruises. I spent 2 weeks in Tibet and in a monastery. I was learning to meditate. And I saw things that I couldn't explain. I saw telepathy and mind reading and all these amazing things because of this connection we have, this universal connection. We're all connected to each other by this energy web. And we only see a very tiny fraction of what's happening. We never see true reality. It's always colored through the lens of our past. So we're never looking at true reality. But as a species, as a spiritual being having a human experience, we just don't ever want to push. We don't ever want to become uncomfortable. We don't want to go out of our comfort zone or out of our box. You have to open your mind to possibilities. Every successful person I've ever worked with, I've worked with presidents and prime ministers, professional athletes, sports teams, the biggest CEOs in the country, celebrities, TV stars, movie stars, comedians. It doesn't matter because every single one was using their mind power. Most of them knew exactly how to do it. The ones who were successful were that didn't know they were doing it, were still doing it. They just didn't realize what they were doing. There is a certain way to live in this world, to live in this life, and to have the best life possible. It's not supposed to be a struggle. It's not supposed to be full of stress and anxiety and pain. Bad things happen, yes. But we learn how to deal with them, and we deal with them from a base of power instead of getting sucked into a vortex of emotion and anger and sadness and fear. And that's what always happens. And dealing with any problem from that vortex is never going to work. You want to be solid, planted, and you have to have an open mind. So let's go on. This is the first principle in the science of getting rich. Thought is the only power which can produce tangible riches from the formless substance. The stuff from which all things are made is a substance which thinks, and a thought of form in this substance produces the form. Original substance moves according to its thoughts. Every form and process you see in nature is the visible expression of a thought in original substance. As the formless stuff thinks of a form, It takes that form. As it thinks of a motion, makes that motion. That is the way all things were created. We live in a thought world, which is part of a thought universe. The thought of a moving universe extended throughout formless substance, and the thinking stuff moving according to that thought took the form of systems of planets and galaxies and maintains it. Thinking substance takes the form of its thought and moves according to the thought. Holding the idea of a circling system of suns and worlds, it takes the form of these bodies and it moves them as it thinks. Thinking the form of a slow-growing oak tree, it moves accordingly and produces the tree through centuries. That's amazing. Maybe in creating the formless seems to move according to the lines of motion it has established. The thought of an oak tree does not cause the instant formation of a full-grown tree, but it does start in motion, the forces which will produce the tree along established lines of growth. Now let me jump in here for a minute, and I want to tell you something I learned a long time ago. I want to talk about how things are created, creation, our ability as co-creators of our lives. The formless stuff, the original substance, everything he's talking about here. Now, this was written 110 years ago. Science, quantum physics are proving these things. So it's amazing to go back and read this. And then from today's standpoint, meditation, especially transcendental meditation, is a great way to get into this area where all things spring from. It's called the unified field, and it's a scientific, proven scientific fact. What happens is in meditation, in TM, transcendental meditation, your mind goes down and you go into that unified field where everything that has ever been made, everything that will ever be made springs from. Man went to the moon. How do you think that happened? It started with a thought, right? Everything that you see, touch around you, everything began as a thought. Thoughts have power, tremendous power. Thoughts are energy. Any thought mixed with emotion creates powerful thought waves that become belief patterns that can change everything. Abundance is a mindset. And that's why people that have money always have more money. You see some make more money. You see people that win the lottery, somebody who is broke and that wins 50 million, and they're usually broke within a year. They spend everything they have because it's a mindset. When you pay bills, are you mad? Are you angry writing every check? Not me. Everything I pay, I just paid bills yesterday. I love it. I let it go freely and I let it come in freely. If you hold tightly to the money as it goes out, what do you think is going to happen for money coming in? Everything in the universe is a give and take, a yin and a yang. And the law of attraction, the law of cause and effect. These things are real. We just don't understand them. And people that do are the ones that have all the money, have all the power, have the success. So let's go back to the book. Every thought of form held in thinking substance causes the creation of the form, but always along lines of growth and action already established. Let me grab a drink here. It's like winter already here in Cleveland, so the heat is on. And I'm not a big heat person, but it makes the air dry. So I'm going to read that again. Okay. Every thought of form held in thinking substance causes the creation of the form, but always along lines of growth and action already established. Okay, let's go into it. The thought of a house of a certain construction, if it were impressed upon formless substance, might not cause the instant formation of the house, but it would cause the turning of creative energies already working in trade and commerce into such channels as to result in the speedy building of the house. This, the secret, this is, they use this almost verbatim, this piece. If there were no existing channels through which the creative energy could work, then the house would be formed directly from primal substance without waiting for the slow processes of the organic and inorganic world. Let's say this. No thought of form can be impressed upon original substance without causing the creation of that form. Man is a thinking center and can originate thought. All the forms that man fashions with his hands must first exist in his thought. He can't shape a thing until he's thought that thing. And so far, man has confined his efforts wholly to the work of his hands. He has applied manual labor to the world of forms, seeking to change or modify those already existing. He has never thought of trying to cause the creation of new forms by impressing his thoughts upon formless substance. When man has a thought form, he takes material from the forms of nature and makes an image of the form which is in his mind. He has so far made little or no effort to cooperate with formless intelligence. He has not dreamed that he can do what he sees the Father doing. Man reshapes and modifies existing forms by manual labor. He has given no attention to the question whether he may not produce things from formless substance by communicating his thoughts to it. We propose to prove that he may do so, to prove that any man or woman may do so, and to show you how. As our first step, we must lay down 3 fundamental propositions. First, we assert that there is one original, formless substance from which everything is made. All the seemingly many elements are but different presentations of one. All the many forms found in organic and inorganic nature are but different shapes, but made of the same stuff. And this stuff is thinking stuff. A thought held in it produces the form of the thought. Thought in thinking substance produces shapes. Man is a thinking center, capable of original thought. If man can communicate his thought to original thinking substance, he causes the creation or formation of the thing he thinks about. So let's summarize it. There is a thinking stuff from which everything is made. In its original state, it penetrates, it permeates, it fills all the space of the universe. A thought in this substance produces the thing that is imagined by the thought. Man can form things in his thoughts, and by impressing his thoughts upon that formless substance, can cause the thing he thinks to be created. It may be asked if I can prove these statements. I answer that I can do so both by logic and by experience. Reasoning back from the phenomena of form and thought, I come to one original thinking substance. And reasoning forward from this thinking substance, I come to man's power to cause the formation of the thing he thinks about. And by experiment, I find the reasoning true. And this is my strongest proof. If one man who reads this book gets rich by doing what it tells him to do, that is evidence in support of my claim. But if every man, if every woman who does what it tells them to do get rich, then it's positive proof until someone goes through the process and fails. The theory is true until the process fails, and this process will not fail. For every person who does exactly what this book tells you to do will get rich. Again, I'm reading the book to you. It's powerful. The knowledge, the mindset shift, the thinking that has gone into this. I've said that men get rich by doing things in a certain way. And in order to do it, men must become able to think in a certain way. A man's way of doing things is the direct result of the way he thinks about things. That line, to every motivational speaker, every inspirational coach, that line they use. A man's way of doing things is a direct result of the way he thinks about things. Where your awareness goes, energy flows. Whatever you're thinking about, you're bringing into the world. You're expanding. To do things in a way that you want to do them, you have to acquire the ability to think the way you want to think, because that is the first step towards getting rich. To think what you want to think is to think truth, regardless of appearances. Every man has the natural and inherent power to think what he wants to think, but it requires far more effort to do so than it does to think the thoughts that are suggested by appearances. To think according to appearance is easy. To think truth regardless of appearance is difficult. It requires the expenditure of more power than any workman is called to perform. There's no labor from which most people shrink as they do from the sustained and consecutive thought. It's the hardest work in the world. This is especially true when truth is contrary to appearances. This is incredible. And this is absolute truth. Wow. There's no labor from which most people shrink there is no labor from which most people shrink as much as they do from the sustained and consecutive thought. It's the hardest work in the world. That's why most people can't meditate. That's why I couldn't meditate at the beginning. Sitting still with yourself, focusing your willpower, harnessing your intention, repeating a mantra in your head over and over and over for 60 minutes. Does that idea scare the hell out of you? Because it does for a lot of people. The idea of being forced to sit still, to me, was terrifying. I do 90 minutes morning, evening, my routines. And of that, 60 minutes, 70 minutes total is meditation. I couldn't have done that 10 years ago. I couldn't have done that even maybe 6 years ago. This is just powerful. To think according to appearance is easy. To think truth, regardless of appearances, is difficult. It requires the expenditure of tremendous mind power. This is especially true when truth is contrary to appearances. Every appearance in the visible world tends to produce a corresponding form in the mind, which observes it, and this can only be prevented by holding the thought of truth. To look upon the appearance of disease can produce the form of disease in your own mind and ultimately in your own body, unless you hold the thought of the truth, which is there is no disease. It's only an appearance, and the reality is health. I learned this years ago. Since I am such a student of the mind, my entire life, my career is all about the human mind. Teaching people to harness this power, to use it, showing them the things that they can do by tapping into more and more of our mind power. But I'll tell you, it's like the placebo effect. When you have two patients, you give one a sugar pill and the other the medicine, and both get better because mentally they believed it was the medicine. The mind is tremendously powerful. That worked because they believed that was the medicine. You see, they believed it. They believed that was the truth. They had no reason to think otherwise. So it's not hard for that type of belief. When you're believing something that you can't see, when you're believing something that everything around you tells you isn't true, that is true faith. Religion seems to have monopolized the word faith, but faith, belief, those are things you have inside you need for yourself as well. To look upon the appearance of disease will produce that disease in your own mind and ultimately in your body, unless you hold the thought of truth, which is there is no disease. It's only an appearance, and the reality is health. I used to get sick all the time, colds constantly. I haven't had a cold in several years now. The moment I start to feel like one could be coming up, what do we normally do? Better start taking medicine. Oh no, it's cold and flu season again. Right? Immediately, I'm not sick. I feel how do you feel? I feel fantastic. And I'll tell you, it goes away. It goes away. I just don't allow it. The mind is incredibly powerful, but you have to believe what you're thinking. And at the beginning, you may have to trick yourself. You may have to do something. Think about one thing, take the good feeling, transplant it, whatever you have to do. We teach you those things. But you got to start training your mind. It's running rampant up there, and it's running the show. If you're thinking all these negative things, you're drowning in negativity in your life. If you're looking upon everything you think about as lack, you're bringing more lack into your life. To look upon the appearances of poverty will produce corresponding forms in your own mind. Unless you hold to the truth, there is no poverty in your life. There's only abundance. To think health when surrounded by the appearance of disease, or to think riches when you're in the midst of poverty, requires mind power. But I'll tell you, those of you out there who activate this power, you become, for lack of a better term, a mastermind. I've been using that title for years in my performances and seminars and live shows. But you will, because you will have mastered your mind. That's a true mastermind. A mastermind can be a person behind the scenes, like the puppet master pulling the strings. But mastermind in this case means you have mastered your mind, and that is everything. Because when you can do that, nothing can get you. Bad things could happen, but nothing can touch you anymore, because you are now in total control. You're no longer a victim. If you master your mind, you can conquer your fate. You can have what you want. This power can only be acquired by getting hold of the basic fact, which is behind all appearances. And that fact is, there is only one substance from which and by all things are made. Then we must grasp the truth that every thought held in this substance becomes a form, and that man can so impress his thoughts upon it as to cause them to take form and become visible things. I found all of this true in my life in so many different ways, and with so many different people we've seen it. Again, this writing, it's just so antiquated. So I'm trying, as we go through, just to I'm editing it as I go along to give you the information, but to take out some of the things that are just so unnecessary. All right. When we realize every thought that we think, whenever we hold that, in this substance becomes a form. When we realize this, we lose doubt, we lose all fear, because we know we can create what we want to create. We're co-creators. We can get what we want to have. We can become what we want to be. As a first step towards getting rich, you must believe the 3 fundamental statements given previously, and we'll emphasize them again. All right. So here they are. There is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and which, in its original state, permeates, penetrates, and fills the inner spaces of the universe. A thought in this substance produces the thing that is imagined by that thought. Man can form things in his thought, and by impressing his thought upon formless substance, can cause the thing he thinks to be created. You must lay aside all other concepts of the universe, and you must dwell upon this until it's fixed in your mind and has become your habitual thought. Listen to these statements over and over again. Fix every word upon your memory. Write them down. Meditate upon them until you firmly believe what they say. If doubt comes to you, you cast it aside. Don't listen to arguments against the idea. Don't watch TV, read books, which teach you 10, 20 different ideas in different ways. Because if you get mixed up here, all efforts are in vain. Don't ask why these things are true. Don't speculate as how they can be true. Simply take them on trust. It's so true. You know how we stop manifestation, most of us in our life? No matter how you create the idea, the thought of what it is that you want, what it is you want to have in your life. And what we do is once we put that out there, then we wonder how it's going to get here. We go, okay, in order for this to happen, A, B, C, D has to happen, this has to happen, that is, maybe it'll come this way. When's it coming? And we screw ourselves out of it because what we do is we put ourselves between the manifestation as a roadblock because we don't have any belief and we don't have any, when is it coming? When? If you ordered a sweater online, you wouldn't jump on the phone every 5 minutes and ask where it is. You would just know it's going to arrive in a package, in a week or whatever. So what we do all the time is we try to figure out how it's going to happen or what would have to happen for that to happen. And we screw ourselves out of it. The science of getting rich begins with the absolute acceptance of this faith. And this faith is not in the idea. This faith is in you. This faith is in your ability as a co-creator. We're going to go deeper into this tomorrow. And tomorrow we're going to talk about increasing life and giving you more ideas on how to cultivate that belief that you need. Everything in life is a mindset. What's destroying us is mindset. What's lifting us to the highest heights? Mindset. Everything that ever mattered and ever will starts in your mind. It can be a heaven, it can be a hell. And until you take control of it, you're never going to live the life that you want. You're never going to live the life that you deserve or that you intended when you were a kid, when you were a child and everything was amazing and magical and new. And you could go outside and play and become a princess or a firefighter. And the mind was amazing and incredible and everything was impossible. And then we start to conform and we start to be programmed by our parents and teachers and coaches and society, generations and generations back. The dreams, the desires of what people wanted. When we come into the world, our parents program us. We don't decide our religion. We don't decide our beliefs. We don't decide, Usually, if we're racist, homophobic, that comes in programming. It comes through generations. Go into school, rows of desks, look the same, act the same, don't talk. You do that all through school. And then when you go to college, they want you to be different after they've just spent all those years telling you to be like everyone else. People that make it through that, which is a very small fraction. My whole goal in life is to keep that childlike wonder. I've always had I've been a big kid at heart, but I think that's helped me. It's saved me. No matter what was happening in my life, from cancer to surgeries and everything in between. So tomorrow, we're going to talk about, give you some tips on belief. We're going to give you some tips on faith. We're going to talk about increasing life. So that's tomorrow. We'll do it at 7 again on the science of getting rich. I want to thank you for joining me today. Give this book a chance as we go into it deeper and deeper. It takes time. The first time I read these things, the first time I watched videos on certain subjects, completely flew over my head. But over time, as you learn more, as you feel more, as you see more happening, as you gain the belief, because you're seeing it in your life, doors open for you, synchronicities happen, things happen. This world is magic. Just think about the perfect synchronicities that have created this universe. Everything works in conjunction with everything else. There is science behind it. There's reason behind it. So we're going to go into part 3 tomorrow. All right. If you haven't joined our Facebook community, that is really the hub. That is where our family, it's like a family reunion every day. It's where we exchange knowledge and a helping hand and tips and techniques. And I tell you every day how to take control of your mind. This is my life's work. This is my passion. Having others awaken to the fact that they have immense power that's just dormant inside them. They just have to flip on the switch. That's what we teach you how to do. I've earned millions of dollars. I've been all over the world. I can tell you, money isn't it. Houses aren't it. Cars aren't it. Meditating all day long isn't it. We search for all these things to make us happy when we can give that to ourselves first. And then the outer world starts to change and we become happy. But it's inner world first. Remember, your inner world, your thoughts, your ideas, your emotions, that is always your primary reality. Outer world, forms, things, people, that which most people consider reality is your secondary reality. Always inner, always first. We would love to have you come learn how to take control of your life. Facebook.com/groups/students of self-empowerment. Don't forget our YouTube channel. We need some help. It's one thing we're trying to do. We've got over 300 videos, but we need some more subscribers. We hit 1,000. We can start monetizing, which would be nice. We spend hours a day in this group for you. And with the pandemic, I've had some free time. But as we're gearing up again, going out, going back on tour, doing dates, speaking engagements, and seminars, I'm flying to Dallas next week. So that will start to come up more and more and more time that I need to be doing other things. But we want this community to thrive. We want this community to grow. And no matter where I go, I'm taking you with me. I'm going to take you on tour with me. We're going to keep everything updated, but it costs money and it takes time. So we're not asking you to buy anything, any products or coaching, which, I have tools available, but that's not what I'm asking. Help us by sharing, by promoting our Facebook community, our YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to it, do it. You don't have a YouTube account? Make one. It takes 5 minutes. Don't let that be your excuse. We do everything we can for you, There are some things you can do for us, and you can do it without spending a dime. Getting our YouTube channel up and going is one of those things. So we'd love to have you subscribe. It's youtube.com/BrentWebbOfficial. It's empowerment television, everything you need to make the changes that transform your life. And finally, if you would like to purchase something, it is almost the holidays. Why not give the gift of self-empowerment this year? You know, Dad has enough ugly ties. Mom has 7 bottles of white diamonds in the dresser. And the 28-year-old son who lives at home doesn't need the newest copy of World of Warcraft. Material things, it doesn't matter what that material thing is, can never equal the gift of transformation. If you or somebody in your life needs a little extra help, needs a little push, the most successful people in the world have coaches, have mentors. I have 2. And that's one of the things I learned all those years ago as I started working with famous, successful people. They understand they're not strong in everything. We're all strong and weak in different areas. So the areas that they are weak in, they get a coach. That's how successful people do it. They know how to invest in themselves. People that have a mindset of lack, they invest in cars. They invest in, when they get money, boats. They invest in houses. They invest in clothing and jewelry. People that are successful and will remain successful invest in themselves. Give yourself the gift. Give it to somebody you care about. It's BrentWebb.com/shop. You'll find my books. You'll find courses. You'll find my one-on-one mindset coaching. If you need, or someone you know needs a mindset reset, let me help. Anyway, go to BrentWebb.com/shop or just BrentWebb.com for information on coaching. Certainly appreciate it. Tell your friends. We always love that as well. I'll be back tomorrow, 10 in the morning, for a brand new episode of Brent Live. Brent Live. And then tomorrow night at 7, we'll be back with part 3 of the science of getting rich. That's part 3. That's tomorrow. Thanks for joining me today. If you have any questions or comments, drop them into the comment box. If there's anything that you're thinking about, anything you don't understand, anything you want explained better, drop that into the comment box too. Remember, this community is for you. So we want you to understand everything. So if there's something you don't understand, don't worry about, this is not the community where you have to worry about looking stupid. This isn't the community where you have to worry what someone else is going to say. This is a community of love, of openness, of connectedness, and we are here for each other. So we want you to understand everything that we do. So if you have any questions, drop them below. All right, I will see you back here tomorrow. Go out and enjoy your day. Don't worry. Be happy and feel good. I'll see you then.